Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Vivadivine on YouTube, the V-blog, and this is a Divine podcast, and this is episode number 4. Now, in one of our episodes, 2 podcasts previously, we were going to discuss the fruitage of the Spirit and how can you identify if you are walking or if someone else is walking in Spirit. But as I did with the last podcast, where I took a little bit of a deviation because I wanted to talk about Black Lives Matter, because I thought it was a relevant topic and the time was right. This next podcast is about depression. And the reason why I am talking about this is because recently I was honored to be asked to be part of a panel on a public access talk show called the Cat Nation Let's Talk show, and the topic was about depression, which is a topic that is very close to my heart and near and dear to me as someone who has experienced depression and is now thriving and flourishing and beyond it. The reason why I wanted to make a podcast about this is because amongst the panelists from different walks of life, from different backgrounds, experiences, everyone had a story about depression, either in the past tense or present tense. And within the audience, we heard powerful testimony from people who are daily dealing with depression. And a remarkable woman, her name is Kat, she shared her story with us about how she is fighting every day. And she told this story with a smile on her face that was so bright that you couldn't help but know that this woman at some point in her near future is going to break free of this epidemic. Antidepressants, anti-anxiety medication, and medication that treats ADHD in adults and children are the most prescribed and filled medications in this country. So there is a huge amount of people that we know of, and then there are more that we probably don't know of, who are suffering from this depression of the mind and the soul. Depression is basically an imbalance of chemicals within the brain. And what the medication does, as I know firsthand, is to help you to get balanced with the chemicals in your mind. Another wonderful thing that helps to treat depression is psychotherapy. Getting a good psychologist is tantamount to your healing if you suffer from depression. But we want to talk about the root of depression. What is really causing people, what caused me to go through a period of my life where I wore a mask. It was happy on the outside, but it was sad on the inside. And I struggled with so much internally. So I don't know if you are going through depression. I don't know. I don't have answers for you because you have the answers. You have to sit and you have to decide what it is that is causing you to feel this way, to experience life this way. From my personal experience, my first awareness of depression, of an inner sadness, was prior to discovering that the death of my father at 3 years old had set me up for a huge hole in my soul. And so when I was about 27, my spirit, for some reason, acknowledged that I had this hole in my soul and that I needed to find a way to get past it. And just by a miracle, I happened to come across a book called Father Loss in the bookstore one day by accident. And I took that book home and I read it from cover to cover that night. I threw the book across the room when I was done and I cried for 5 years. And in the beginning of those 5 years, I took myself to a therapist, and that helped me to get past that melancholy, that depression at that point in my life. From the time I was 21 to the time I was 41 years old, I suffered dysthymic disorder. It is a chronic form of depression that lasts more than 2 years. But in my last bout of depression, my last time being on medication to help my mind stay clear, to help me sleep at night. I don't know where the thought came into my mind, but it just presented itself one day, and it said, it's your thoughts. Your thoughts are creating this depression. At the time, I was employed at an amazing job in aviation, but I had outgrown it. I was also in a very challenging marriage that was weighing on me. And I was also ensconced in a religious mindset that kept me in a place of guilt and fear because I felt like I could never, ever live up to those standards, and I was harboring feelings that I didn't believe everything. So these three things in my life were creating a sense of hopelessness within me, and I constantly fed that hopelessness and that frustration with these thoughts in my mind, and it only added chemicals within my mind that were misfiring. So when the thought popped into my head that it was the thoughts that I was thinking about my situations and being in those situations that were helping to create my depression or exacerbate it, I started doing something on a regular basis. And that was feeding my mind systematically with positive reinforcement. Did I feel better overnight? I did not. It took years and years of building up that positive reinforcement in my mind before it finally took hold. And in that same interim of those years, I also, surprisingly, with my spirit, found a way to leave my marriage, walk away from that job, and walk away from that religious mindset. The minute I shifted the things out of my life that were creating and exacerbating my depression, things started to change. I would keep reinforcing my mind with positive thoughts about everything. And people thought I was crazy. Here come little Miss Positivity. And people would laugh at me, when I would post things on social media that's only positive. But what they didn't realize I was doing, I was treating my spirit. I was treating it daily, regularly. And that's how, in a way, Vivadivine has saved my life, because it forces me every day to research, read, infuse my spirit with only things that are positive, wholesome, and good, that helps me grow spiritually, that sharpens my mind and makes it full of clarity. It strengthens my resolve to live, and it connects me to that source. And that was something during the talk show that every single person kept coming back to: their connection with God, their connection with a higher power, their connection with something that is powerful, that is somehow keeping them on track. I can tell you this, and I'm going to be responsible. Do not come off of your medication. Do not stop going to therapy. You need those implements in your life to keep your brain in a place where you can start to do the spiritual work of connecting. When you connect to the source that created you, you get a direct line of healing, and it clarifies your spirit. It starts to work on your mind, and it starts to work on your spirit, and your whole environment starts to change to reflect what that spirit is all about. And I'm dead serious when I tell you guys this. What you see in those videos when I speak to you is my spirit alive. I am not faking happiness. I'm not walking around with a mask anymore. What you see is the spirit inside of me, free from depression and sadness and confusion and fear, because I'm walking due to that connection with my spirit. So if you can grasp that idea about you being a spiritual being here in a physical form, suffering from depression based on circumstances that you've experienced, and some of them are horrendous. Some of the things that people have experienced from their childhood just makes my heart just break. But your spirit is strong enough and able enough to overcome it. But you've got to get connected, and you've got to trust that spirit that it will start to work with you. It is not meant for you to suffer. That is not your purpose. It is meant for you to rise and for you to shine. And as someone who has overcome depression and overcome a lot more, I am here to tell you it is possible. And myself and all the other people on the panel who are thrivers, survivors, and flourishers, we are going to start telling you how we did it. So this podcast is for you. It's for you who is suffering and know you're suffering and you are sick and tired of being sick and tired. Sit down and ask yourself, what do you want? Do you want to be free?